GM, welcome to another Touchgrass podcast episode. Today we're here with the founder of Litecoin himself. This is probably the biggest episode me and KG have done together. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's awesome. I was just telling Charlie before we press record, Litecoin is probably the fifth ticker that I ever looked into and bought. So this is like an iconic moment for me and KG both. Charlie, why don't you start us off? I've been doing a lot of reading into your background. Obviously Litecoin was started off in 2011. You were at Google at the time, and then you went to how did this all get started?
Yeah, I was so I graduated at MIT with a computer science electrical engineering degree. Came out here to Silicon Valley in 2000 during the dot-com boom, and very quickly the dot-com bust. Joined a startup and eventually got a software engineering job at Google. I was at Google working on YouTube Mobile, Google Chrome, and the Play Store, Google Play. And then that's when I discovered Bitcoin in 2011, early 2011, really got into Bitcoin, saw it as like the future of money. And then been playing around since I have a computer science background, I kind of looked at the code, kind of dug into the code, and played around with it and created Litecoin kind of as a fun side project. Didn't expect too much from it. Back then there were like a dozen or so other altcoins, and I figured I could kind of try my hand on my own. And the rest is history, I guess.
Are any of those other altcoins still around, you reckon?
All the ones before Litecoin are not around. Maybe Namecoin is still around. I don't know. Have you guys heard of Namecoin?
I have not personally.
Okay, maybe it's still like running and still around. I don't think it's traded much. But yeah, none of the coins before Litecoin is around.
I think the community took over the CTO'd it.
Oh, they did? Okay.
But yeah, let's get into it, right? Like you at 2011, you immediately saw Bitcoin, and you were kind of.
Charlie, what did your friends did you tell your friends at Google about this? Like, hey, I'm building this cryptocurrency.
Not really. Like Google. I mean, back then, like you have to understand, Bitcoin is very experimental, right? It's kind of it's not money, right? It's kind of like virtual tokens, right? It's almost like, I don't know if you've heard of like SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. There's a program that this was before even Bitcoin, where anyone can run something that would run as a screensaver on your computer, and it would try to decode, look at the radio wave signals and try to figure out if there's any patterns or any intelligence in them. It's not just random signals. And it's a distributed system where people just would run, right, for fun, kind of to help look for alien life. And at one point, like they gave you like points or credits for doing that, right? And you don't get to do much with it. So Bitcoin is very similar, where you're just running a node that is just doing some computation, and you get some Bitcoins, right? It's kind of like World of Warcraft, digital code and stuff like that, right?
It's like numbers on the screen that are like massive Bitcoin.
So it's not something that that the mainstream would understand or would even know too much about. So I didn't really tell anyone. I mean, I think I did talk to some people about it, and most people aren't interested. They're like, okay, whatever. Google itself was not interested in doing anything related to Bitcoin. There was a few people at Google that were into Bitcoin, including Mike Hearn, who was one of the original early Bitcoin developers. He was very big about Bitcoin at Google, and I actually bought my first Bitcoin from Mike Hearn.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was actually someone that I know, not well initially, but yeah, I bought my first Bitcoin from him.
That's crazy. And Charlie, with all this pump fun meme coin stuff, launching a ticker today is like one click. Just for our audience, how hard was it to create something like Litecoin back in like 2011?
It wasn't too hard. I mean, back then you need to know how to code, right? So I forked the Bitcoin code base, made some changes. I mean, it wasn't a lot of changes, right? Litecoin is very similar to Bitcoin. The hardest thing was actually generating the Genesis block. So the first block that anchors the whole blockchain. All the code was open source except for the code to generate the Genesis block. So, and I kind of had to reverse engineering that part. Basically, you use a CPU miner, right? And you just keep running the CPU miner to mine a Genesis block. And then, I mean, it's not that hard, but it was just something that is not, the code was not out there. So yeah, and that was like kind of the hardest thing. And then kind of I would say the hardest thing about it was launching it kind of fairly, right? So locking the Genesis block, I made sure that the source code was released before the launch, so people can actually study the source code. Probably like maybe only 2 people actually looked at it. Everyone just trusted it. Source code and binaries were available to the public, I think about a week before the actual launch, so people can kind of run the node and test mining on their computer. So it was a CPU mined coin initially, and that part was complicated because I wanted to launch a code and a source code, but also not make it possible for someone to mine the real chain, right? You can only mine the test. So I had to withhold some secret and then only release that secret on the launch time, so people can kind of just copy and paste that code, the secret I held, into their configuration file, restart the node, and will mine the main chain as opposed to the test chain. So that part was hard to kind of figure out and make sure that it's done fairly. And then I think just the community building is where most of the time went into, right? So the early Litecoin supporters are the Litecoin miners, right? People who mine Litecoin are the ones that are out there like pushing for adoption, getting more people interested in Litecoin. So kind of
where did this come? So was crypto Twitter a thing? I'm sorry, like
no.
I joined the space in like 2020. Like I want to know everything. Like where did this community exist? How did you tell people? What was like first? Like
So the community exists on mainly the Bitcoin Talk forum. So bitcointalk.org, I think was a website where it's basically everyone who's into Bitcoin would kind of be on there talking about Bitcoin and anything related to Bitcoin. So altcoins would be part of that discussion. And then that's where that's also where I kind of posted my launch post about Litecoin. So pretty much all the communication will be on that forum. Some stuff will be on IRC. There's no Twitter. There's no Telegram. Yeah, so it's the community was really small. Like I would say about like 1,000 people, maybe plus or minus around there. In terms of like Litecoin supporters, probably like hundreds, right? It's very small back then.
Do you know any of them still now? Do you think are you connected with anyone till now?
I mean, a lot of the early people, there are still some supporters, like really early supporters of Litecoin that are still around. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. We talked about your days at Google, and then you went to Coinbase. How was it like being, from when Coinbase was so early, and what was the experience like building probably the biggest exchange?
Did all the Coinbase early employees have their own tickers, by the way? Like Charlie, was it like a room full of everyone that just had their own cryptocurrency back then?
No, actually, the Coinbase, like a lot of people at Coinbase, early Coinbase, were not into crypto before they joined Coinbase. Like, because we were hiring people who were good software engineers, right? Not necessarily people who are already into crypto. I mean, some obviously they know about crypto and they might have dabbled a little bit with it, but not really like super hardcore crypto people. Right? I think I was the only one that was really into crypto before I joined Coinbase.
How was it like working with Brian in the early days?
It was fun. It was so when I was at Google, I mean, Google is a pretty big company even back then. But nice thing about Google is obviously very good perks, and it acted like a small company, right? When you're working for like when I'm working on a Google Chrome OS, the team was kind of small and it's kind of like a little startup, right? The only difference between that and other startups is that it has the backing of Google. So whenever you launch something, you have millions of users like from the start, right? But with Coinbase, it was much more of a battle for survival, right? You just don't know if you're going to succeed. So it was when I joined, I was the second engineer at Coinbase. Initially it was like 5 people. Brian and Fred were the founders. Another software engineer and a customer support guy and myself. And then we slowly grew from there. It was a small little office in San Francisco. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just a tight-knit group of people trying to change the world.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, like when you were at Coinbase, that's when the Litecoin community sort of grew for the first time, right? Like that's when everything started happening. How did you feel at that? Was that the first time where you were like, oh shit, Litecoin's actually real? Like there's so much rally behind it?
Kind of, yeah. I joined Coinbase in, I would say like in 2013. So when Litecoin was like 2 years old. Yeah, I mean, Litecoin has been, ever since launch, it's kind of just kept growing. It was one of the first coins added to exchanges in China. And back then, like China volume or China Bitcoin trading was huge, right? So Litecoin being on them helped a lot where people were trading Litecoin. The other benefit of kind of a lucky break was that when Bitcoin transitioned from GPU to ASICs, all the GPUs had nothing to do and turned to Litecoin, because at that almost basically the same time, Litecoin transitioned from Litecoin GPU became possible. And so all the Bitcoin kind of miners who had their GPUs doing nothing because it couldn't compete with ASICs turned to Litecoin. So it helped like secure the Litecoin network, also add a lot more Litecoin supporters in terms of the GPU miners. So that was kind of very lucky, kind of lucky break that happened. Yeah, and then with Litecoin on all the Chinese exchanges and being supported everywhere, it really kind of just took off.
Awesome. And then, so after Coinbase, like when did you decide to leave Coinbase? Like, I want to talk a little bit about like the original thesis behind Litecoin. I've seen you talk a lot about like Litecoin is hard money. There's a lot of thought process in terms of messaging. Talk to us about, leaving Coinbase, focusing on Litecoin. How's that transition? What was going through your mind, and how it's grown into what Litecoin is today?
Yeah, so I was at Coinbase for like 4 years. It kind of became a very like a big company, right? So it wasn't as fun and exciting anymore. It had big companies have big companies issues, right? So I didn't really want to work for a big company, and also I wanted to kind of put my time back on Litecoin. At the time, there was this whole scaling debate on Bitcoin where there was a proposal called SegWit, which is a way to scale Bitcoin that was quite controversial. With SegWit, Lightning Network would become much more feasible. but some people were on the side of wanting Bitcoin to just increase the block size to 8 megabytes or even more, right? There's like the Bitcoin, other Bitcoin proposals, right, where people were fighting over. And I thought SegWit was a good solution. It was a good compromise, SegWit and Lightning Network. So I saw an opportunity for Litecoin to kind of help out by implementing and activating SegWit first to test it out. The thing about Litecoin is that it's a valuable network, right? So if there are any like problems with the upgrade, you see it right away because people would attack it, right? Because they can make money off of it. So whereas with like Bitcoin testnet, you can test all you want with the code. You can't test the game theory aspect of Bitcoin, right? Because people won't bother trying to break SegWit on testnet because there's nothing to be gained. Whereas with Litecoin, there is something to be gained. So having it launch on Litecoin and show that it works and there's no issue with it was really important for people to feel comfortable with SegWit on Bitcoin. Yeah, so I left Coinbase and focused on that for Litecoin.
Awesome. Over the years, has anything changed in your view with how rapidly the crypto space evolves? Has anything changed in your thesis for Litecoin and where we stand today?
Has anything changed with what can you kind of rephrase your question?
Like
Yeah, I'm just being that.
initially when you coded Litecoin and what it is today, like how has the perception of the community or even your perception of what Litecoin can be, how's that changed or evolved over the years?
Yeah, well, initially Litecoin was kind of a fun side project where I didn't expect too much from it. It being like a decentralized cryptocurrency it's kind of has its own, like, it's kind of like a living thing, right? It just evolves by itself. I can kind of steer Litecoin towards kind of my vision, but I can't really control it. It's not, so it's becoming a big thing where people actually use it. I think initially, like early years, everything related to Litecoin goes through me, right? I had to talk to like exchanges to convince them to add Litecoin, talk to payment processors, convince them to add Litecoin. And funny enough, the reason why I joined Coinbase was initially I reached out to Coinbase to try to convince them to add Litecoin. They said no, basically. And then they asked me if I was interested in the job. And that's how it happened. So I interviewed and the rest.
Did they eventually list when you were there?
After many years, right? Like a few months before I left, they decided to list it. And I was leaving whether or not they were going to list it. I told Brian that I'm going to focus on Litecoin. And then a few months later, the timing was right for Coinbase to list Litecoin. Because we listed Ethereum and it worked out well. And we were going to expand into other coins, and Litecoin was the obvious next coin to support. But of course, when they decided that they're going to support Litecoin, I'm like, I'm on it. I'm gonna work on that. Yeah, and then what was I saying? So yeah, in the early days, basically everything. I had my hands on everything related to Litecoin, but these days, like a lot of things, people supporting Litecoin and companies supporting Litecoin without going through me, right? They don't need to ask me for permission, right? That's the nice thing about decentralized cryptocurrencies is they can just support it. So, for example, PayPal launched Litecoin. I only found out about it like a month before they launched it. So they were working on it. They didn't talk to me about it. They didn't ask me for permission. Of course, they don't need to, which is great. And then they launched it. So like that was the first main thing that did not have my involvement at all, which is great. Which is it shows that Litecoin has kind of moved past needing me to do everything.
Yeah, Do you have any iconic moments or memories over, what I'd say is like 3 cycles, 2013, 2017, and 2021?
Uh-huh.
Any fun community moments, or I know you guys have been doing the Litecoin Summit for a while.
Yeah.
Any fun community moments there?
Any funny moments? Well, like it's funny whenever there's like the huge like kind of all-time high, people like celebrate it, right? Sometimes there's like Bitcoin parties, and like I've been to a few of those, or even like the separate launch party, activation party, and like the halving, right? Or you call it the halving. Whenever that happens, it's also very exciting where people were talking about it or joining parties and stuff. So I mean, lots of cool things over the years. Every 4 years, there's a halving. There's also Bitcoin and also Litecoin halving. Yeah, and like you said, we do a Litecoin summit every year, or at least we try to. During the COVID years, we kind of took a break for a bit. But the next one will be in Amsterdam in June. So we're trying to do one outside of the U.S., which is
Yeah.
the first.
Me and KJ are we're going to try to make it to that one and meet you there IRL. Charlie, you obviously keep up with the Bitcoin ecosystem a lot. Do you keep up with like the other ecosystems in the space? Like, do you chat with Vitalik from Ethereum, or Charles from Cardano, or Gary from Polkadot? Like, are you guys all friends? Is there a dynamic there? Is there
Uh,
anything there?
there isn't. I don't really talk to them much. I've known Vitalik since the early days, like really early days, where he was a editor at the Bitcoin magazine. I was actually an investor of the Bitcoin magazine, so I've known him before he even touched code. Right? He was just writing about Bitcoin. He was actually a very good editor. He wrote quite a few very good technical articles about Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm sure they're still online somewhere. So, but he was very good at that. And then when he launched Ethereum, I was kind of aware of it. I supported him. Yeah, so I've known Vital for a while. I haven't talked to him recently. I mean, he's probably like on an island somewhere. But he's a cool guy. Know of I know Charles. Don't really talk to him much. His coin is very successful. Yeah, and the recent coins, I don't really know the founders of like Polkadot or Solana. Yeah, I don't kind of
Do you
pay
know the Ripple
attention.
guys, like David?
Ripple?
Yeah.
Talked to him a few times. I don't really know him well. Yeah, it's funny that we on the Litecoin Foundation we also have a David Schwartz.
Oh yeah.
Use that name. A much cooler David Schwartz, I would have to say.
Do you have any thoughts on the Ethereum ecosystem, how it's grown over the years?
Yeah, I was during the um, like the Ethereum Classic hard fork thing. I was pretty against it. I even like sent a message to Vitalik saying that it's kind of a bad move. Basically, I don't know if you remember, they made a decision to kind of fork and block the hackers kind of coins, right? So I think as a decentralized cryptocurrency, like it's a slippery slope, right? If you decide to do that, what else can you do, right? You can blacklist coins, you can come together as a group and block someone from sending coins, and that's just not good for money, right? It's not the goal of Bitcoin and Litecoin and cryptocurrency is censorship resistant money, right? Nobody, no governments, no third party, no foundation should be able to stop you from sending your own coins, right? So the hack obviously is not great, but it's just one of many that would happen, right? And if you start like rolling back that hack, or you're gonna roll back future like FTX crashes or someone stole all the Ethereum from FTX, why don't you roll that back and take it back, right? So it becomes a slippery slope. I was pretty much against it. Yeah, but I mean, given that, but Ethereum is fine, right? They kind of survived that. So It's kind of all in history. Like most people who are Ethereum supporters today probably don't even know anything about that.
Yeah, I think back when I joined the space, I read about it because I was interested in what Ethereum sort of the fork was. Yeah, I mean, if you look at a lot of the news cycle participants, like even, I work at the Wormhole Foundation, people don't even know Wormhole's origin. For instance, I think it's always great to sort of look back at these stories and sort of think back at them. Charlie, one thing that I do want to talk about, how did you feel when the DAT went live? LiteStrategy. I feel that must have been an iconic moment in your life as well.
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge kind of thing where, I mean, they're buying like $100 million worth of Litecoin, right? So that's a lot in terms of like percentage wise, that's quite a bit of Litecoin for one company to be holding. I think it's great. I think LiteStrategy is great for Litecoin. It's one thing about them is it's kind of a win-win, right? They would support Litecoin, support the ecosystem because it helps Litecoin, it helps the price of the Litecoin that they're holding. So something about Litecoin that is very different from like Ethereum or like Solana or Cardano is that Litecoin is launched without any pre-mine. So pretty much all these other coins that you talk about today that are pretty big today all have pre-mines that are basically coins that they print out of thin air to give to the foundation, right? So the Ethereum Foundation, the Cardano Foundation, all these foundations have tons of coins that they're sitting on that they can sell and raise funds and hire developers. At one point, people were talking about how Solana had like 100 developers working on the blockchain, 100 plus, right? And then Litecoin, we have like 2, right? We have like maybe a few volunteers, but we only pay for 2 developers' time to work on Litecoin, and that's fine. So kind of a very different way Litecoin functions. So with LiteStrategy, it's kind of a good thing where it has like deeper pockets to actually help fund and support the ecosystem, which I'm very excited about.
Would you say that's the reasoning why, like I've heard you say on podcasts that Litecoin is a great asset for a company to hold? Would you say this sort of thesis behind tokens with the foundation, that's why it's a good asset for company treasury?
Yeah, well, I think one big thing is that Litecoin is fair, right? When you're buying Litecoin, you're not making someone else rich, right? You're not making me rich. You're not making like the foundation rich. You're buying Litecoin because it's useful, right? And it's also good money. So I think it's good asset to hold. It's very similar to Bitcoin in that way, right? And also it has a long track record of over 14 years of no downtime. So it's been running for 14 years nonstop, no issues at all. And not many coins can say that. I mean, even Bitcoin had issues where some blocks were rolled back. But yeah, it's the second longest running coin next to Bitcoin. So yeah, I think it has a good track record and it's good sound money. It's a good asset to hold.
100%. As we kind of close out this year, is there anything that you would like to say to the community about what's next for 2026?
Definitely come to the Litecoin Summit in Amsterdam in June. So a lot of people, like whenever we have the summit in the US, a lot of people outside the US were kind of upset that it's too hard to come to those Litecoin Summit. So having one in Europe, hopefully people in Europe can all come. Yeah, we'll try to have more summits in all over the world. So we're definitely trying different things. We're working hard on just adoption, right? Getting people to use Litecoin to see why it's good money, and yeah, and we're also working on the MWeb, which is a privacy fungibility layer on top of Litecoin, which makes it even better money where people can't where you have more financial privacy. So I think which is
You wanna talk more about that? Do you know the Zcash team, by the way? Do you keep up with them?
No, I mean I don't talk to them. No, but I know. I mean I know Zcash very well. I know what they're doing.
Is that where the Litecoin privacy layer is inspired from?
It's different. So Zcash, Zcash is, I would say, more kind of stronger privacy than Litecoin, MWeb. So we're trying to strike a balance between usability and privacy. I think we have enough privacy that is good enough for everyday use. It's not perfect privacy. I would say Zcash is more closer to kind of perfect privacy. But of course there are trade-offs, right? The transaction size will be bigger. It'll take longer to create transactions, and there are other things. So yeah, it's a little bit different. Zcash and Monero are more stronger privacy than Litecoin and MWeb.
Is that something that you will sort of focus on in 2026 or 2027? More privacy enablement on Litecoin, or stronger privacy enablement?
No, I think MWeb is good enough, right? So more privacy would be kind of ways to mix coins, right? That's something that could be interesting, could be useful. But I'm more focused about usability and just making it easier for people to use MWeb. So having it on more wallets and more ways to use it, more merchants accepting it, stuff like that. In terms of like what interesting things that I would be looking into is, I think quantum computing is imminent, right? So that's something that I'd have to keep a close eye on.
Do you believe in the Bitcoin quantum computing thing that everyone says, that Bitcoin's gonna fall apart if quantum computing becomes a reality?
I mean, all of finance would fall apart if quantum computing becomes a reality. So it depends on how fast it comes, right? So there are quantum safe like algorithms that we can switch to, that we need to do research and work on. I'm not like actively working on it, but it's something I'm keeping a close eye on. So it becomes an issue where like the Satoshi stash is an issue, right? If quantum computing happens, someone can steal 1 million Bitcoins and spend them, right? So how to address that problem is, it might be a huge it might be a huge controversy in Bitcoin when it happens, because what do you do, right? Because his coins are a little bit different from recent coins, actually. Technically his coins are not protected as well from quantum as Bitcoins are sending today. So it's actually quite easy for quantum communities to steal Satoshi's 1 million Bitcoin. So how do you handle that, right? Do you all come together and say, and block anyone from sending those coins, or do you just let it happen, right? Because unless he moves them, right? If we have quantum safe addresses, for example, everyone who's active can move their coins to a quantum safe address and protect themselves. But if Satoshi's not around anymore, or he decides not to move them, then they're sitting in a vulnerable address, right? And if the community decides to block it, it's kind of questionable, because that's kind of censorship, right? You're censoring him from sending transaction, even if he wanted to. So it's going to be interesting the next few years when it happens, and I think it's going to be very, very soon.
That makes sense. Charlie, it's been awesome to have you on the show. As we sort of close out this episode, I do have 2 questions. One I missed out in the front, so I'll just ask it. Where does the username come from, SatoshiLite? Is that sort of your Bitcoin Talk username that sort of transferred?
It wasn't. On Bitcoin Talk, I had a username called Cobbly.
Okay.
And then on Twitter, initially, Cobbly was taken. I forgot what my username was. I think it was like Litecoin Cobbly or something like that. And it's kind of a silly name. And then someone at a Bitcoin event, someone called me like SatoshiLite. Just because like I launched Litecoin and I'm like a light version of Satoshi, And then that name kind of stuck, and I decided I'm just gonna embrace it, right, and just use SatoshiLite on Twitter. And it's easy to remember, and it's kind of cool. And I'd like to tell people, whenever people interview me, I just tell them that the only reason why you're interested in talking to me is because you can't find Satoshi. So I'm like,
Yeah.
the next best thing.
Did you guys back in the day try to find Satoshi? I'm pretty sure that must have been an arc, like Bitcoin Talk 2011. Who's Satoshi? A lot of investigation. Did those conversations happen?
When I first got into Bitcoin, Satoshi, like people actually thought Satoshi was a real person. Like there's someone named Satoshi Nakamoto, a Japanese.
Yeah, they found a person in Japan, and I think
it wasn't Japan. It was actually in LA. They found someone named Satoshi Nakamoto that they thought it was him. But I mean, it still could be him. Who knows? It wasn't until like later did people realize how well Satoshi kind of covered his tracks. Like people started looking and say, "Oh my God, this guy actually doesn't exist. Like everything is private. We actually don't know where he is. We actually don't know who he is." So I haven't really tried to find Satoshi. I mean, I think what's great is that Bitcoin stands on its own, right? It doesn't matter who created it. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. It works. The innovation is Bitcoin itself, and by disappearing, he kind of like removes himself out of the picture. But which makes it a lot more interesting too, to have a mysterious creator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you
know find out who he is? One day it'd be a great story, kind of. Yeah. But it also would be cool to never know. So.
You watched the Netflix documentary? Did you believe in that?
Which one? There was one that claims
the recent one.
What's that?
The recent one.
Was it the one that Mike Hearn was, or not?
Yeah.
Sorry, who was it? Oh, Peter Todd. That claimed Peter Todd was Satoshi. Yeah. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Like Peter, how was Peter when Satoshi created Bitcoin? Like he was like a teenager or something, right? He was. Yeah, it makes no sense to me that Peter would be Satoshi. I don't know why they would say that.
Okay, Charlie, when sort of SatoshiLite came into the picture and crypto Twitter was evolving, how was the vibe on like crypto Twitter? How has it evolved? Like, do you have fun spending time on crypto Twitter? By the way, like
I used to be a lot more active on Twitter. Like, I grew my follower count to 1 million back in 2017 or something like that, and I was very active on Twitter. And then it kind of became a lot less active recently, right? I don't really tweet much and post much. For me, it's become kind of more of a waste of time. There's just people kind of preaching to the choir. A lot of groupthink, a lot of just hate on other coins that they don't invest in. So it's kind of a lot of noise. The signal to noise ratio is very low like these days. So I don't use it that much. Yeah.
That makes sense. Charlie, last question for you. We have a lot of founders on. They always talk about community. You know, KG works at a marketing agency where growing community is one of the major things that they focus on. Do you have any advice for founders who are looking to build communities? Like what makes the Litecoin community so strong?
I would say the main thing is that you actually have a real solution, right? You have something that actually makes sense, right? A lot of projects are solutions looking for a problem, right? They try to solve something that doesn't really need to be solved, right? So like or like meme coins, right? You're not really doing much. So building community is kind of the only way to make this coin successful, because without it, the coin is nothing, right? So I would say you really need to think about what kind of value you're adding. Like, is there a reason for people to buy your coin and to hold it? if there is a reason, it becomes much easier to build this community, right? You're effectively not really building a Ponzi scheme, so to speak, right? If you're building a Ponzi scheme, it's much harder, right? So if there's nothing in the core, then it's really hard to build a community. So I would say instead of focusing on the community, focus on what value you're adding. And if you're really adding real value, then the community will kind of build itself, right? People would join the community because there's real value that they're getting from it.
Yeah, it's years and years of hard work. And everyone wants it in a month or two, which is pretty wild. All right. Thanks so much, Charlie. Thanks so much for the time. This has definitely been an experience for me, talking to the man himself. Thank you so much. And we will be in Amsterdam in June 2026, and we'll see you in person.
See you guys there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for having me.